I'm here. Are you here? Let me know if you're here. I'm just
Let me know if you're here.
just all right. Let's dive into today's topic. Today, we're going to talk about, all things weight loss and fitness, but this is specifically goes out to women who are looking to start your weight loss and fitness journey. And I'm going to cover seven things you kind of want to understand if you're starting your weight loss and fitness journey. I want to do a quick check-in. So if you're watching live, then just comment live so I know who's here with me. Sometimes it feels like I'm just talking to a computer, so it's nice if I know if you're here live. But if you're here on the replay, I love to know that too. I know sometimes we like to be like quiet observers in the back of the room, but just hit replay and just let me know like I'm engaged, I'm here, I appreciate what you're doing, or I'm learning something. So just comment live or a replay and let me know in the comments. Okay, so I wanted to cover these seven things, and now I'm going to also give you access to a longer training too, if you want to go more in depth into this topic, because this one's not going to be a very long one. Okay, so I wanted to start off with calories, calories in and calories out, which really means so when you take in more energy than you burn, you gain weight, and when you take in less energy than you burn, you lose weight. This is the closest thing to a scientific fact. So what do I mean by more energy? And so calories are a unit of energy. And so when you take in, let's say, more food than you can burn, you gain weight. So when you take in more calories than you can burn, you gain weight. But when you take in less than you burn, you can lose weight. So now I want to caveat before we go a little bit further into this first point is that a lot of women, one, understand this, but two, because they've either struggled with weight for so long or they're really want to lose the weight quickly, they tend to drop the calories really low really fast. And so what I do want you to understand here as we dive into this is when you do that, your body's survival mechanism kicks in and a bunch of things happen on a hormonal level, on a metabolism level that kind of happen to kind of set you up to make that really hard for you to sustain, really hard to do, or that over time, let's say you were able to kind of muscle your way through it or whatever, that it starts doing the opposite for you. And so when I'm talking about calories in, calories out, I'm really talking about one, looking at it from like doing it slow and steady so that we're not signaling an alarm for the body. So we often think about this as like eat less and move more, but let's consider what might affect this. So when it comes to energy in, it's affected by your appetite and your satiety. That's why I always talk about protein and fiber. So meaning like, sure, you could try and eat a little bit less, but appetite and satiety could certainly mess with that, making it a little bit harder. Meaning like one, your hunger can go up a lot, and then you never feel satisfied. Maybe like you finish a meal and you're constantly like, okay, when's the next time I'm going to eat? Or you feel snacky. Or some women will even say like they feel like they want a little bit of sugar after they're done eating, even though they ate a lot. So that's why I always talk about protein and fiber, because it's not just about looking at calories, it's looking at how those calories are made up, and boosting up your protein and fiber will help with the appetite and satiety. The food you consume is influenced by by availability, of course, and energy density. So for example, you can hit calories and go to McDonald's and eat and still be in your calorie deficit. You can go and do Subway and still be in your calorie deficit. So, I mean, there are examples all around us. Doesn't mean that they have optimal health, but you can still do that. But the thing is that it's not going to help you necessarily with appetite or satiety or with those cravings or with that energy as well. So what you're looking for when you're looking at calories in, calories out, you're looking at foods that have less calories per volume. So if you were to take the same amount of calories for candy and the same amount of calories for fruit, you'd be able to eat a lot more fruit just because it has more volume in the food versus the candy. It's more dense. A lot of women do this with nuts, for example. So recently I was just at Farm Boy, and right by the counter they have this it's like a sleeve like this big of nuts, for example. It's like a good handful, but it only fits in one hand. And it's about 300 calories in that. And so we think, oh, I'm just just eating healthy, I'm just eating a little bit of nuts for my afternoon snack or what have you, but we're not considering the amount of calories, take that 300 calories, right? And if I were to compare it to the bread I had this morning, I could probably have 4 slices of my bread this morning, which I would never have. I would just be too much bread, but at one time, but I could do that. I probably had, just over 300 calories with my eggs and my spinach and my toast and my avocado this morning. So you're looking at, the energy density, the calories per gram, let's say on a label. And then also what can affect this is sleep quality. What we know is like if we don't sleep well or we don't sleep enough, for example, or we have like sleep debt, for example, that can increase your hunger as well. And that can increase your cravings too. And then the way calories are absorbed. First of all, calories absorbed, meaning like your digestion. So even though you're eating healthy, well, if you're not going to the bathroom regularly, or even you are going regularly, but it's like loose stools, for example, you are probably not absorbing the nutrients from your food well. And so even though you're eating in a calorie deficit, your body isn't getting what it needs. So it could be like nutrient deprived. And when it's nutrient deprived, then that increases your cravings, increases your appetite as well. And so it's not just about calories in, it's looking at, okay, well, does my body work right? Or does it work efficiently to absorb the nutrients from this food as well? And also like protein, carbs, and fats, they empty out of your body at different rates. So carbs usually empty out first. And so that's why if you eat protein, I always like to think protein is like Winnie the Pooh references, like Wise Owl. If you have that, it has to do, it takes a lot of effort for the body to break down the protein. That's why it helps you with satiety as well, and appetite. And then fats are slower digestion too. And there's psychological factors to consider too, like your stress, your mindset, your perceived control, and your self-esteem too. So it's easy to say that it's about calories in and calories out, but we're missing the nuances within that. That's why coaching is great. But no, it's we're looking at, okay, so women who get really frustrated because they feel like they're not eating a lot of calories. We want to make sure that we're reporting that accurately, but two, we're not considering all these other things, how those calories are made up, how they're broken down, the density of that, the psychological factors, all that to consider in terms of your calories in. Now, this isn't meant to make you feel like overwhelmed or, I don't know how to go about doing this. It's to help you understand that there's other factors at play, to hopefully help you understand, like, if you're feeling really overwhelmed or like frustrated by it all, that we're probably missing some of those little factors in there that would help us. For example, digestion. A lot of women, when they do different diets or weight loss programs, they're not even thinking about their digestion. So that could be the missing gap for you, is like, I only go every 2 days or every 3 days. And when I go, it's really hard to pass. Or I go every day after my coffee, but take my coffee out and I don't go. Or I go every day, but it's super, super loose stools, or I have like unprocessed foods in my stools, for example. So it's just considering that. So when it comes to energy out, it is influenced by the energy you burn at rest, which is influenced by your body size, your hormone status, your dieting history, your genetics, your health status, your sleep quality, and your age. So meaning, like, just by me kind of like being here, for example, I'm burning amount of energy. I'm moving my hands, my foot never settles here. I get up, I get down, I get back, chumbawamba, I guess. And so that can also influence how much calories you burn, or your energy out factor. So we already talked about calories in, but now we're talking about the calories out status. And so for some people who work at really sedentary jobs, they benefit from getting movement breaks in. They benefit from fidgeting more, for example, but also like your body size, because, more muscle you have, then the more energy out, because it takes a lot to maintain the muscle. Your hormone status, your dieting history, long bouts of dieting can actually slow down your metabolism as well. Genetics, health status, your sleep quality, and then your age as well. What we do know that there's a decline in muscle as you age, so that's why we want to strength train, as an aside note. So energy burned through exercise would be another calories out, because we already talked about calories in, right? So now we're going to talk about calories out. So the energy you burn through exercise, and sure, you can have your like little tracker that says you burn burn that amount of calories or whatever, but it's also about your ability, your intensity, your duration, the frequency, your hormonal status. So for example, hormonal status for women who are in the menopausal age, it's avoiding a lot of HIIT, a lot of like boot camp style workouts, or a lot of endurance cardio, for example. It's you can have some of that for sure because there's strength elements in there, but it's looking at shifting to more of strength, so lifting weights, for example. And so the energy burned through calories is the way that you can burn energy burned through exercise is a way that you can do the calories out equation. And again, we talked about your occupation. So even I've had a client who went from working on the factory floor where they were always moving, and then they went to a desk job. They didn't change anything else, and then weight gain started to happen, and it was just simply because the amount of steps that they got in changed. You can see that with male carriers as well. In the beginning, they lose weight, but male carriers comes in all shapes and sizes. It's because over time, also your body kind of adapts to that as well. So it's like a double-edged sword there. And you got your leisure activities. So a lot of clients, they play volleyball, they do golf, or like I have got clients who do like hockey, for example, or soccer, and then energy burn through metabolizing your food. So the example that I used earlier was like when you eat protein, think about it like this. I'm going to just like simplify it for you. So protein is like you eat your protein, and it's kind of got like 3 different traffic stops along the way. And each time it stops at a traffic stop, you burn a little bit, you burn a little bit, you burn a little bit. And then what's left over is either going to fat storage. If you like eat more, you're going to go fat storage, or you're going to excrete it out. Whereas if you eat carbs, especially if they're like high glycemic carbohydrates, natural or not, is that there's no traffic cops. It's like straight out. And then fats, they slowly empty out of the stomach. So it all takes at different rates. And so you can influence just by eating more protein, you can influence that energy out. And it takes the body more effort and time to kind of break down that protein, is what I'm getting at, than it does for like carbs, for example. And it's one of the reasons it helps with the satiety. So now we've looked at, okay, for weight loss, you need calories in, calories out. But we also looked at, okay, well, what would affect calories in, right? The different areas of there. So you could optimize 1, 2, 3 of those areas. And we looked at calories out, and we looked at, okay, well, what are some things I need to consider to optimize my calories out? So now we know what influences calories in and calories out, and it will all start to come together as we kind of move through today's training. So a lot of women report that they have eaten the same way for a long time, but things are now kind of changing. For example, like more weight gain, or more weight gain around their abdomen, for example, or they've never really struggled with weight and now they're struggling with weight. So this tends to happen because one, the slight increases in food intake due to, let's say, changes in your mood, for example, your hunger or your stress, or even just the client that I talked to yesterday. It's like emotional eating is, something happened and then now they're engaged in emotional eating, and then that was never the case before, for example. But hunger and stress can also impact your food intake, not just necessarily, more calories, but it can also affect like the types of calories you're eating, for example, more carbohydrates. An increase in the amount of energy absorbed. So this can be caused by, like, if you went on medication, for example, let's say you went on thyroid medication, for example, you have an unknown medical condition, so like an autoimmune, for example, or a history of chronic dieting, or even just changes in your gut. And so a lot of women, when they hit menopausal ages, is like their bowels change, and so and not necessarily for the better. So that can mean that you're not getting all the nutrients from your food, you're not absorbing it well, and so all those things can impact, even though you've been doing the same thing, the weight's coming on or whatever, the weight's not changing where it used to be easy for you. Those are kind of the things to consider as well. And then the onset of chronic pain. So chronic pain, the body then needs to prioritize pain relief, and healing the body that way. It's not then looking at weight loss, even though that's your goal. Provoking, and that can also, if you have a lot of pain, for example, again, the client yesterday was chronic neck and shoulder issues, or I have another client who's had residuals from long COVID where, her breathing is impaired as well. And so that can affect your movement, not just like your exercise or your intensity of your exercise, right? Or the type of exercise you're doing, but even just general moving. If I'm always fatigued, or if I have rheumatoid arthritis, for example, or I have sleep apnea, or I have chronic pain and I'm constantly, tired or just fatigued, fatigued, then I'm not going to move my body as much. I'm not going to go stand as much, for example. I'm going to feel really tired. And so that can decrease that as well. And then significant changes to sleep quality or quantity that can impact your kind of your metabolic output and or the food consumed too. Generally, if you have a crappy sleep or whatever, you want to eat more carbohydrate food, or even like I've had some clients who've had this like long flu-like cold, and you tend to crave more carbohydrate food because you just want to feel better too. So that can impact you, even though you feel like you're doing everything the same. These little things can certainly be what's influencing you in a different direction, and essentially energy balance kind of just shifted in a subtle way due to your like lifestyle or your health status, for example. And because most of the women listening to this training will be in that kind of hormonal transition, or either in perimenopause or about to or in menopause, is it calories or hormones that affect weight, right? Hormones can impact energy balance, so the calories in and calories out. Particularly, hormones that can be impacted are ghrelin and leptin, so your hunger and satiety cues, but also your stress hormone, your cortisol as well. So certainly your hormones can impact your energy balance, the calories in, calories out, like we just touched on. But hormones respond to our inputs, what we do. So even though there are changes to your hormones in this period, there are many things we can still do to get our hormones to kind of play nicer, for example. So waking at this time of your life can be because we are underestimating, for example, our calorie intake, overeating on the weekends, for example, or any of the reasons I already mentioned before. But a lot of women are like, I need a hormonal diet, or I need to fix your diet or fix your hormones, or it's because I have my hormones. And I get it, because I just had 2 clients who are like, my doctor just said, well, accept it, and you're in menopause, that's what's going to happen. But we don't need to accept it, because we can do things that then our hormones respond more likely to us. So what we do, and then our hormones respond to that, and they would start to play a little bit nicer. It isn't to say that hormones aren't transitioning or that hormones aren't there, but at least we're not creating, one hurdle after another and another. We're eliminating some of the hurdles by, feeding ourselves and moving ourselves in the right way. And then our body can then respond to be a little bit kinder there. The other point I wanted to bring up was set point. Now, okay, set point, the reason why I want to bring this up is because recently women have come to me and they've said, like, it feels like I'm doing everything and it's not moving. Or I've had clients where like they have really, like in the beginning, it's like their increments of fat loss. So for example, their inches and their weight loss on the scale, it's moving at increments, right? And it's like steady increments. And then all of a sudden they get to a point where it either stalls out, inches are slightly, but weight isn't moving, or weight is moving, but inches aren't, but it's smaller increments. And then they get really discouraged there. And so the reason why I wanted to bring up set point is because, one, I wanted to say, like, this is what's happening when you feel like you've hit that point where you've hit like, I was doing good for the first 10 pounds and now I can't get the last 5. This is what's happening. Or if you're like, it was happening at this rate and now the rate slowed down, even though I haven't changed anything, this is why it's happening. Okay. So, it's because sometimes when you're on a weight loss journey, there comes a time where it feels like you're kind of pedaling harder and there's more resistance, and just, it's not happening as quickly as you want it to, or in the relation to kind of the effort you're putting in. So this is kind of going to explain what's happening here and help you stick with it to get to the other side and stay patient. We know that if you give up and you're like, screw it, this isn't working, you give up, you're way further behind, right? So we do know that we do need to execute a little bit of patience, but I just want to give you perspective as to what might be happening. So set point theory is an idea that the human body has a specific weight that it wants to maintain, and that your body will adapt to and hold that weight if possible. Now, I've been tracking my weight since 2012 was the first time, like I probably checked before, but I have records of it. So from 2012, and then at different various points or whatever, but my weight always returns to a baseline, always. And if I look back, it's like I can lose weight and then I go back to that baseline. I lose weight and then I go back to that baseline. Now, for some that have been dieting for a long time, you're gone past the baseline, right? Because you've of that chronic dieting, and then the metabolism kind of, slowing down, which can be corrected, but it's slowing down. So for me, I can see like okay, I always return to baseline. I always return to baseline. That's what I mean by like set point. It's the idea that your body will adjust to periods of more food and less food to try and keep the body stable. And so again, the body's main job is survival. And so it pulls from whatever area it needs to survive. Have you ever had your period, for example? And then all of a sudden it's like you hit a fatigue in the gym or you don't feel as strong. It's because the body is then going to that inflammation in the belly. Or if you're really nauseous, for example, my dad in the hospital, he was really, really nauseous, and all of a sudden his hands got really cold, his feet got really cold, but he was really sweaty, and then he was starting to feel like a little bit lightheaded. That's the body survival mechanism at play. And so that happens in weight loss too. And so when you drop the calories, let's say too low, or you make too many changes, the alarm starts sounding, and then the alarm gets louder and louder and louder. And that's either the point where you give up, right? Or that's the point because it gets too hard, cravings are high, hunger is high, for example. Or that's the point where it feels like you're pedaling too hard and you're not getting enough in return. Or it feels like it's the point where your body is like, nah, nah, nah. And that's when your set point can go higher. So the idea is that your body has a weight that it wants to maintain. That's the point where it says like, that's where I'm going to survive the best, right? And it'll adjust food, more so or less to try and keep your weight stable. So set point is true in the sense that our bodies do have like an adaptive mechanism in place that aims to keep our body weight stable. But that doesn't mean weight gain or a stop in your weight loss. The way the body regulates the weight set point is therefore impacted by how much is coming in, how much is being used in a combination of both, just like we just talked about, right? So this is why we want slow and steady so that we don't sound the alarms. You want slow and steady so that the body says, okay, 2 pounds, I can survive here. 2 pounds, I can survive here. That's why we want slow and steady. And when you diet, and sometimes when you have long history of dieting, you go to this, you drop below the set point, right? No alarms are sounded, and then all of a sudden the alarm sounds, and then when you go back, right, and then it goes above the set point, and then it's possible to reset a new set point because the alarm just sounded too big. So the other point would be digestion. So imagine your body as like a smart machine that runs on good food. Now think of your digestion like the engine that makes everything kind of work smoothly. So when your digestion is doing a good job, it will take the good stuff from your food and turn it into energy. That energy is what keeps you going, helps you lose weight, and it even actually affects your mood. We could go as far as like your skin and your hair and that sort of thing as well, but it does affect your mood. The gut is the second brain of your body. And so there's a lot of research even about diseases as well, even just new emerging research around cancer, but there's even, around depression and anxiety about looking at the gut, for example, and even ADD as well. So you might want to look at that if you're interested in any of that research there, but it does affect your mood. So here's the deal. When your digestion is on point, your body can use all kind of the good nutrients it gets from your food. It's like giving your body the right fuel to kind of keep the engine, running smoothly. This not only helps you, lose weight more easily, but also, it does keep your hormones in check. So these hormones are like messengers telling your body when to eat and when to stop. So now, okay, so on the flip side, if your digestion isn't doing so hot, it's like throwing a wrench in the engine. Your body might not get all the good stuff it needs, making you feel, tired, maybe even a bit moody as well. And it can also mess with your hormones, making it harder to lose weight. So by taking care of your digestion, eating good stuff, looking at that stress and the sleep as well, you're basically giving your body, kind of like a VIP treatment, I guess. So it's the secret sauce to, feeling good, losing weight, and keeping your mood in check. Now, digestion is sometimes overlooked in diet approaches because the focus tends to be on what to eat rather than how the body, kind of processes and absorbs nutrients. So many diets emphasize, let's say calorie counting or food restriction, or like avoiding specific food groups without addressing the role of digestion and making those nutrients available, I guess, for our body. So additionally, digestion can be a bit complex, and it impacts not it's not always immediate or visible, because I've had a lot of clients too say like, I don't have digestion issues, but then once I start working with them, then they're like, oh, I didn't realize that was part of that, or I didn't realize I could feel so much better, or that could happen, right? So people not always connect how well they digest with their food, with their kind of overall health and their weight. It's like having a high performance car, but not paying attention to the engine. It might run, but it won't reach its kind of full potential. So dietary trends often prioritize, like quick fixes or trendy foods, sidelining the foundational kind of importance of well-functioning digestive system. So digestion could be something that you want to look at if you're looking at weight loss. It's probably I'm going to say like there's a high percentage of clients that I've worked with. I worked with hundreds of women that haven't ever looked at their digestion as part of their weight loss solution or their weight loss kind of programming. So when we look at exercise and movement, there's 5 common beliefs. One, believing that only like high intensity workouts lead to weight loss. That can be counterproductive. While intense exercise, it does burn calories, it can also trigger like your stress hormones like cortisol, potentially leading to increased fat storage and disrupting your hormonal balance like cravings as well. So overdoing it might make the body feel stressed and result in the opposite of the intended weight loss effect. And then 2, the idea that longer workouts are more effective can be misleading. Extending sessions may, one, lead to burnout, but can also elevate your stress hormones, impact your digestion, and disrupt like hormonal balance. And then that can all hinder your weight loss too. Number 3, thinking of exercise solely as a way to burn off calories can contribute to overcompensating with food after a workout. So even though, let's say I went out and I ate like this massive meal, for example, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm going to go work out. Sure, like you're like, okay, well, I did the math on this. This was 1,800 calories, so I'm going to go burn 1,800 calories. It doesn't necessarily work like that, because a bunch of things happen to your hormones at this time. And so even though you might be burning the 1,800 calories, you're not necessarily fixing everything that happened while you ate that. For example, your hormones, for example. So, and then burning it off usually means, okay, well, I'm justifying why I'm going to be eating this food or why I'm going to be overeating. I'm giving a justification because later I'm going to go punish myself with exercise. And so it creates this it never feels motivating to work out if you're in this kind of punishing role, right? And then number 4 would be expecting instant results from exercise. That can just lead to frustration, disappointment. So again, sustainable weight loss is about gradual. Here's the thing is a lot of women have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge on how to lose weight. Obviously, I don't want to say obviously, a lot of the gap is implementing it. You know how to do it, but there's a gap in why can't I do it consistently. But a lot of women don't actually have the skills to maintain their weight or maintain their results or maintain their habits. Meaning the thing that they're doing over here to lose weight doesn't necessarily help them, give them the tools, the skills, the habits, the support to be sustainable in the long term. And so there's a disconnect between those things. So we're good at losing weight, but we're not good at sustaining the weight loss. And then dismissing that movement throughout the day is, a lot of women will tell me like, it's not worth it. Why bother? I had one client who has a hard time being consistent with her exercise. And so we started off with 10 minutes and she was in the mindset of like, why 10 minutes? Like, why bother going down there and getting dressed for 10 minutes? It's not going to do anything. But guess where she's at now? She's at 30 minutes now. And sometimes it's like we dismiss the little things, but the little things are like the stepping stones to get to that bigger thing as well. And then 5 nutrition common myths is 1, some women believe that drastically reducing their calorie intake is essential for weight loss. However, extreme calorie restriction can lead to nutrient deficiencies, again, slowing down the metabolism and then trigger more overeating and making you feel deprived. There's a perception that specific foods, often labeled as bad or unhealthy, must be like entirely avoided for weight loss. And that can really affect your relationship with food. We don't think about our relationship with food, but that's what it is. And it can affect it in a negative way. really contribute to like feelings of guilt or anxiousness, for example, and making it challenging to really, keep on your balanced, sustainable diet. And then skipping meals can backfire by slowing down your metabolism. It can disrupt your blood sugar levels, making them dip too low, for example, and then when you eat, dipping too high, and increase the likelihood of overeating. There's a commonality for women who delay their eating in the morning tend to snack more or eat heavier later at night. And if you think about it, we kind of want to flip the script, because if we're eating more during the day, we're burning more throughout the day versus eating late at night and then, going to bed. The other thing is a lot of women are trying to correct their nighttime snacking, but they're not looking at how they're spacing out their meals throughout the day and how that might be contributing to their nighttime snacking, for example. And carbohydrates, especially those from sources like grains or processed, refined, and fruits, are often viewed as like culprits for weight gains. But like we learned, it's more about calories in and calories out and less about carbs. The reason why you might lose weight when you cut out carbs is because you cut back your calories, not because you cut out carbs, unless there's a digestion inflammation thing going on, right? And many women believe in the effectiveness of fad diets or quick fixes for rapid weight loss, but it's just unsustainable. It doesn't teach you how to keep the weight off, right? And those quick wins in the beginning are usually because of water loss, and hence, you cut out the carbs. Carbs hold 4 calories per gram of water, and so you lose weight in the beginning when you cut out carbs because you've cut out water that was in the carbs that you were eating. And then 5 common beliefs around lifestyle. There's a common belief that weight loss success is solely dependent on willpower. This mindset often overlooks like the influences of other factors such as your stress and sleep and how that can play a role. And then chronic stress can lead to, elevated cortisol levels, which may contribute to an increased fat storage, particularly around the abdomen area. So we don't want to necessarily ignore stress management. So think about it on a scale of 1 to 10. Where do you usually fall on stress on the spectrum there? And if it's fairly high, I would say 7 or higher, then that's where we want to prioritize that, get that under control, or feeling a little bit more balanced to then help us with our weight loss. And there's a misconception that sacrificing sleep for increased, let's say, productivity is a worthwhile trade-off. In reality, sufficient sleep disrupts hormonal balance. It impacts your hunger hormones, and then that can just lead to overeating and weight gain. And then believing that emotional eating is a sign of weakness or about willpower can contribute to like a negative mindset around food. And there's a common belief that achieving a certain weight will automatically result in happiness and equate to better health. While, weight loss can certainly contribute to improved well-being, it can't solely bank that on. I like to think about it like a basket, for example. And so am I thinking about, where do I get my self-esteem? That's the basket. Or where do I get my sense of worth or my sense of value or my identity? Or where do I get my level of happiness? You want to have other things in that basket, and you want to have other things prioritized over how your body looks. You could be how your body feels, for example, and separating that between how your body looks, but also other things in your basket. It's when we only have that and we're like, okay, in my basket, that's this, and then I'll deal with that, and then I'll go find something else in my basket. That's when you're going to get into, a less than positive relationship with your body. You're going to get into less, it's not going to last. You're going to be hanging on by a thread at some point. And so you want to make sure that there's other things in your basket. So I'm going to drop a link to a more in-depth, comprehensive training, Mastering Weight Loss Basics, Overcoming Plateaus and Struggles, for those that are, want to dive a little bit deeper into this topic. In the training, we're going to cover, weight loss basics. We're going to extend beyond that. We're going to go a little bit further into calories in, calories out. We're going to go into plateaus beyond the set point, and we're going to look at like an 11-point checklist that you can use to kind of troubleshoot your weight loss woes or struggles as well. So you can kind of write them out as a checklist and then be like, okay, well, I'm going to work on this, and then I'm going to work on this, for example, to get to the bottom of, the results that you want. So What I like to think about is this training like a glass of water. It holds value when it's consumed, not when it's left untouched. So drinking it once, gives you kind of momentary benefits, but constantly drinking it will yield you maximum results. Meaning like there's value in consuming this information, but there's less value, maybe no value if you don't do anything with it. So you do want to touch it at some point and practice it. And doing it, just consuming it once might give you momentarily like, okay, I'm gonna do something, but we still want to consistently drink it. We want to consistently implement it to get maximum results. So the key to taking imperfect is to take imperfect, consistent action. So if you find yourself needing support along the way, feel free to reach out into the DMs and explore, the option of personalized coaching. But I will drop the link to the fuller training on this as well in case you want to go there. All right, thanks for joining me, and let me know in the comments what are your takeaways, or what's the imperfect action you're going to take.